to the 40k Fireside podcast, where we discuss everything to do with competitive Warhammer 40k with your hosts Vic VJ and David Gaylord.
Alright everyone, welcome back. You'll have to excuse me if I'm a little bit tired. I've been playing Warhammer for the last 4
Thank
days
you for listening
now.
to the 40k Fireside.
Finally got a good
Make
night's
sure
sleep
to leave a
last
like,
night, so
subscribe, drop us a
nice.
comment, check out the YouTube members
I
area.
had a bit of time to
and we look
recap
forward
and
to
distill,
seeing you
and
again
I
next
thought,
time by the
let's
Fireside.
just go ahead and get the LGT recap done with a fresh mind where I can remember all the games and have a talk through my run. For those of you that don't know, I was playing the Invitational on the Friday, and then the main event was Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. This event was hosted in London. I've got a picture of it up and above on the next couple of slides. It was 1,092 players, the largest singles event in history, and I want to give a special shout out to the UKTC for surpassing the threshold of the largest singles event, not only in a player capacity number, but one thing I thought was really striking, and I asked specifically about this, I asked the head judge, how many incidences did they have of sportsmanship throughout the entire event? Out of curiosity. And the head judge told me they had no more than 5. They either had 4 or 5. And when you consider that there are 1,092 players playing a 5-round tournament, to have 5 incidences is just absolutely astonishing. And I think we all deserve a bit of recognition in the community we have here in, predominantly UK, EU, and there are people that travel from further abroad than that, but it really is an exceptional playing standard that we've managed to achieve here. So big congratulations to the team at UKTC, because they also work hard in creating that atmosphere, and big congratulations to everyone that came for putting on just an amazing event. So let's jump straight into it. I was playing Black Templars Gladius. It was a build I played at ETC a couple of weekends beforehand, and overall I managed to come 8th. I made top 8, and then I played Alexander Sacco, who came 2nd in a terrible matchup for me in the first round of the top 8, but I'll get to that a little bit later. So why don't I run you down my list really quick here. I've got Chaplain Grimaldus, 2 Marshals, 3 Castellans, an Emperor's Champion with Honor Vehement, Combi-Lt, and a Callidus Assassin. Then for my infantry, I've got 4 Sword Brethrens, and I've got Power Swords on them and Pyre Flamers. Then I've got Assault Intercessors, a unit of 10, a unit of 5, a unit of 5. I've got a unit of Intercessors, and then it doesn't show this on the slide here, I'm just realizing. I've got 2 Repulsor Executioners, both with the big lasers. And then I've got 1 Impulsor with the 5-up gain a CP when you use a strat within 6. So, this list is a little bit different. I've done a deep dive on the members section of it, and then I did the ETC recap. If you want to learn how to play this list, there is a Black Templars Gladius masterclass for like £15. It is absolutely insane value. It will tell you the ins and outs of how to run the entire list, but I'm also going to be breaking down my stream game here in a minute, which you'll see it kind of put into practice. And I think that this is the best way to build Black Templars in full stop. There are a lot of different build variants out there, and I think the direction which some people take of creating a smaller number of harder hitting melee units is not the correct way to play. And in the stream game, I'll kind of show you some of the pros and cons to that. And my version of having 1 Central Brick with the Grimaldus and 10 Assault Intercessors, which also provide Cull the Horde, and then Marshals and Castellans with my Sword Brethren and remaining Assault Intercessors, and then Emperor's Champion alone, really provide a list that will give you 6 to 7 hard-hitting melee units that will 90% get the job done, and effectively double your total unit count that you can play with. So it is a melee pressure list that has 2 Repulsor Executioners in an attempt to keep your opponent honest, provide you some ability to shoot off chaff, to charge better, and Repulsor Executioners also provide you with the ability to get a transport as well. So I played this exact list at ETC. I've got the Callidus Assassin there for melee combat matchups. And this list, I can't really imagine changing anything. On UKTC boards, I could perhaps see playing a third Repulsor Executioner, but once again, that would completely change the total concept of the list. You wouldn't be able to play 6 bricks. You'd have to change something up significantly and drop an Impulsor. So anyway, this is the variant that I liked playing. In the Masterclass, I had another Sword Brethren and an Impulsor instead of a Callidus Assassin. I think this variant is better overall. And you only need to play 3 transports max here. So what are the pros and cons with this list? Well, I'm playing Gladius, so in combat matchups, I'm really, really good. If you play against anything that's pure combat, you've got a good chance of A, fighting on death, or B, reactive moving to make those trades really inefficient for your opponent. Then, excuse me one second. Then you've got 2 Repulsor Executioners, which can provide some pretty steady damage and provide you an attrition over multiple turns, and are a tough transport to crack. And you still have Storm of Fire available, which will allow you to Storm of Fire, Repulse Execution, and Devastator Doctrine to really chew through, say, a 20-man Berserk unit, really thin that down by about 10 or 11 Berserks. I'm just going to turn my phone off really quick. My voice is a little bit sore here as well. Oh, there we go. Back to it. Okay. So, a couple of tech things with this list, and I had a lot of people ask me this as well, is how do I join my character units? Well, in the majority of matches, I join 2 Castellans with 2 5-man Assault Intercessors, a 3rd Castellan with a 4-man Sword Brethren, and then I put the 2 Marshals with the 5/5 Sword Brethren. Why is that? Well, the Castellan Assault Intercessor is really a fantastic combo for full rerolls to hit and wound when you're targeting a unit on an objective. So that's going to be my first units that I'll play with, right? Because those are going to be your early game skirmishing units. Grimaldus goes with the 10-man to create a really big unit that can really benefit from Kull the Horde, and it creates a really tanky unit. And I've really enjoyed the Assault Intercessors over the Sword Crusaders, because I found that Blood Surge was really irrelevant in a lot of matchups. And then we've got Empress Champion, who will mostly run solo in the Impulsor, and typically speaking, unless it's a matchup, which I'll get to later, like Chaos Knights or Big Demons, I'll run him by himself. But if I really could value the rerolls to hit and a potential second activation of him, then I'll join him with the 5 Assault Intercessors. So that's the list. It's really enjoyable. It's a combat-focused melee pressure list, and it's really different from historically what I've played, to be honest with you. I'm primarily a control-based shooting player, and I had the option of playing a different list at this tournament, and I just felt, you know, I really wanted to paint up my army and spend time on that. For the whole, I didn't play a game a week before the tournament. I was basically just painting. I really enjoyed playing something a bit different, a bit fresh, and it was an area which I feel like I could improve upon as a player, so I was happy I played it overall. Okay, let's go to the Invitational game. So what I was going to do is I played my round 2 of the Invitational on stream with Wargames Live, hosted by Joe. A big shout out to Joe. If you don't know, there are other events on in the weekend, like in the USA, which Joe could go to and make more money. I don't actually think Joe makes money coming to LGT, but the guy really is a shining example of someone who does it for the love of it and does it for the community, which I don't know if he gets enough recognition for that, honestly, because you can see over here, this is like all the stuff he has to take on the plane at a minimum, right? So the guy is an absolute godsend to our community. Okay, so why don't we jump into the Invitational game? It's going to be on stream, so I'm going to be going through it and basically running you down the whole matchup. Now, I'm playing against a lovely gentleman called Sam here, who is playing Adeptus Mechanicus. He's playing Halo's Creed, and he's got a unit of 3 chickens. He's got 10 5/5 Ruststalkers, 5 infiltrators, like 3 units of rangers. He's got a big breacher unit, a Scorpius Disintegrator, and a Dune Rider. And yeah, he's a lovely opponent, a really fantastic player, and he's been playing AdMech for quite a while here. So I was quite excited to play this one. Now, I am going here first on Purge the Foe, which is a common theme for some of the other games I will end up playing here as well. No, I'm going second on Purge the Foe, actually, for this one. This is the first time in the whole weekend, and only time I think I went second overall. So, let's look at the deployment. You can see this section here. I'm just going to make sure my mouse is actually recording here. Cool. You can see this section of the board here. There's a big shooting lane. So on this Crucible of Battle map, I often put my Repulse Executioner here where it can't be shot. Well, otherwise he'd have to be in the middle of nowhere. And this Impulsor right here where it can't be shot. And then I like to put my second Repulse Executioner up here, and you can see I've got my Castellan unit with my 5 Assault Intercessors here to jump out and then trade on this objective straight away. And then I've got my other unit of 5 Assault Intercessors in here, in this Impulsor, to jump out on this objective and trade turn 1, or on this objective and trade turn 1. So I've got a game plan if I go second here to trade on objectives and then potentially leave the reactive move up after I move my transports next to the terrain features after that as well. So this is a pretty standard way I deployed. If I was playing against an army with no shooting or short range shooting, I could actually deploy my Repex up here because I could deploy the base up here. And then I can threaten this shooting angle on turn 1 to shoot down this angle and control this objective. So all in all, you can really see how the Repulsor Executioners help make my opponent honest. And I would always deploy my Grimaldus brick basically into my L. So I could move that there turn 1 and try and control a bunch of space. I usually left a couple of guys over here so that I could get like maybe a better advance and charge onto a further away objective. Other than that, my Combi Lieutenant within 6 inches of the middle. I actually didn't do it this game, but I should have done that. That can reactive move back into a transport like an Impulsor. Empress Champion, lone op, so I can just zoom him over and harass an expansion. That's fantastic. I always wanted him to deploy him opposite Belisarius Call, to pressure my opponent so that they can't use Belisarius Call's kind of shooting and melee very easily. So he has to stay away from Emperor's Champion. And then I've got like these Sword Brethren units back here, which look far back, but realistically speaking, I'm going to be disembarking from these transports so I could recycle them back into them on the first turn. And you can see Sam's kind of gone for a very similar approach. He's gone for a Disintegrator here where it can't be shot. Ruststalker's an inch off the wall, a Dune Rider here with Rusties in it, another unit of Infiltrators here, and then we've got some chickens down over here where I can't move 16 on the board edge and shoot them. Okay, cool. So Sam is going to go first here. This is his first turn movement. Now we're both kind of staging here. He drew, I think, Area Denial or something on turn 1, where he had to put a Ruststalker in the middle, and that's going to start the first volley here. So going into my turn. We'll go into my shooting phase here. You can see I'm doing some very precise movement here to get this Repulsor Executioner to get a line on this. Now, a couple of things here. As you can see, I've disembarked this unit. I'm not in Assault Doctrine, so I can just disembark normally, and this is a 5-inch charge. Now, a lot of people don't know that you can actually charge onto this corner piece right here, and then you can swing other guys up to the top side here, and then keep coherency with 2 models here. So that's going to allow me, despite my opponent being an inch off, to still get a 5-inch charge here. And you can kind of see how this unit's like really good value. This is a 135 point unit, can extremely reliably just kill, you know, 100, 120 point unit back. And it's still reasonably hard to kill. And I'm going to have the reactive move after that. And you can see I've got my Repulsor Executioner within range of the objective here. So my plan here and thinking is that if my opponent does come onto this objective, I've got the choice of either, after I kill their unit on their turn, I've got the choice of either reactive moving back into my Repulsor Executioner perhaps, threatening that, or just fight on death with the unit. And that's a really common play with Gladius I found, is that I could trade onto an objective in the melee matchups, and then I would be almost always discarding a card on turn 1. I would then have enough CP for fight on death, so my unit would effectively trade twice if they killed the entire unit, which makes Gladius really hard to trade into in the combat matchups. So I'll just continue on with the rest of my movement here. And you can see something that this is something that I learned a lot from in the Combat Masterclass with Liam, VSL, who, by the way, won again, if you didn't know, the LGT for the 3rd time. But the Combat Masterclass on 40k Fireside, which you can buy as well, is extremely cheap. This is a core central thing to do. This is called castling with your melee unit. Now, as you can see, I've got a Callidus Assassin somewhere in here. I think it might be this model right here. To Vict Aura my opponent around this area, right? I've then got a unit in front, an inch off. I've got one model against the wall, and I've got my Sword Brethren unit an inch off as well. I've then got my Impulsor covering my other Sword Brethren unit, and I've got heroic options both ways. So this, attacking into this area right here with a melee unit is extremely difficult. Whilst at the same time, I've got one model an inch on the wall, so I can move my maximum distance out from this wall when time comes to it. Let me take a drink. So, you may think, David, Your opponent has breaches in strategic reserve. Why would you bring your repulse executioner out here to shoot and kill some rust stalkers? An excellent question. I am actually perfectly fine, and this was actually my macro strategy against Aeldari as well. I'm perfectly fine, and this is also something I learned from Liam VSL. I'm perfectly fine putting a unit out there, despite it may being good, to draw my opponent's main unit out closer to my main combat unit, right? For example, if I put my Repulse Executioner here, they bring a Wave Serpent and Fire Dragons to come and kill it. If that brings that key unit closer to my Grimaldus brick, I'm happy every time. That's a good trade for me in the long run. It may initially look like a bad trade as soon as it dies, but later on as the game goes in the next turn, you're going to be within striking range of that very important unit. So it's a bait in a certain sense, which is very, very good if you're playing a slower combat melee army. Like, I mean, Space Marines are not fast, so you do need to draw your opponents into them. So as you can see, Emperor's Champion down here, he can react to move and he can blank and fight on death, so it's pretty difficult for a unit like Belisarius Call to go and challenge that ruin. Or some Rust Stalkers. Okay, got some other stuff going on. Now, what ends up happening is I charge the unit, I get a unit in the corner here, a unit up here, and I kill this unit of infiltrators and I consolidate backwards. Lovely jubbly. I shoot and I don't end up killing this Rust Stalker in the middle, but we both have equal objectives, so it's not the worst thing in the world. I get extend battle lines, and as you can see, I could establish Locus, of course, but I want to bring up my CP as fast as possible. Because in Gladius, if you have more CP, that can be the difference between you reactive moving and just threatening your opponent to reactive move and have like a fight on death and heroic. For example, you can see I'm straight to 4 CP here. This is very critical. If my opponent decides to go with his melee units, like Rust Stalkers and something up here, then I have the ability to interrupt on one side. Well, I have the ability to fight on death the unit he fights first, and then interrupt on the other side, making going into combat into my army very, very difficult to do. Other than that, I've still got Overwatch and Armor of Contempt and reactive moves. So I've got a lot of choices up my sleeve, and I can wait to see how my opponent's going to play as to whether or not I'm going to want to use them. So how does this work out? You're going to see Fight on Death and Armor of Contempt be really useful here in a second. So what I do is, I've got 4 CP. I could see that my opponent's gone for a play where he's going to move his Rust Stalker unit. He's got a unit of 2 that he moved from the middle up here, and then a unit of 5 that he disembarked to try and clean off the squad here. Now I know that between Fighting on Death and Overwatch and Armor of Contempt, there's actually a good chance that I can beat this unit of 5, what is now 7 Rust Stalkers, between my Repulse Executioner and my unit up here. And that's exactly what we see happen. There is a moment here where I Overwatch. I think I kill 3 Rust Stalkers out of the 5. Seems about average, to be honest. And what ends up happening is my opponent brings his breaches in, shoots my Repulse Executioner, but look at the way that this is staged, for example. These ranges right here, this Disintegrator and these breaches, this is a good example, and I'm not trying to be too critical of Sam here. This is a great example of, you've got your Breacher unit, which is one of your main assets, but you haven't move blocked to protect them against a melee pressure army. What would have been better from Sam is if he had move blocked his entire Ranger unit across here, so I could never have charged his Breacher unit anyway. The reason that's important, for another part, is that this Ranger unit and tank are very close to the Breacher unit, right? If you look at these units right here, in Sam's deployment zone, they are all very bunched up together. And when you're playing a slow, hard-hitting melee army like Gladius, Black Templars, you really need to take advantage of piling in after the unit, like multi-charging the same unit, then piling in and overcharging around stuff to then hit other units behind it. And when you've got units that are just like, you know, within 4 inches of the other unit, within 2 inches of the other unit, you really let yourself open to getting hit much deeper into your ranks than you otherwise would. So, like I said, this fight phase continues. I live with 1 Assault Intercessor up here, because I fight on death and AOC, and this Repulse Executioner dies to the breaches, but this unit gets out, for example. So, now we're in the position where this is my turn 2, and likely this is going to be the Assault Doctrine turn. I've got this unit here, which is in range of this Ranger right here. I've got my Grimaldus brick that can go +1 to charge, and I've got my Callidus Assassin on top of that. So I can rush my Callidus Assassin out, Vect Aura, but basically everything. I've got Sword Brethren unit that can target this. I've got my unit in here that can target this. I've got this Sword Brethren unit, which is also in striking range of this Dune Rider as well. So we're going to get in for a penny and in for a pound. The idea here being is that despite going second on Purge the Foe, I'm going to have hopefully a tempo lead here, which is going to be kind of insurmountable to overcome here. And a bigger part of my army as well is that if I can shut down my opponent's ability to move and fall back and shoot, and not be near the middle objectives, then they're going to be triggering my reactive move, they're going to be triggering my fallback move with the Sword Brethren, and that's going to be making my opponent's decisions really difficult as the game goes forward. So a really nice play here. I've over skipped it. See if there's a shot of it here. Okay, so like I said, this Ranger unit is in a little bit of a bad space because it's going to allow me to put a unit against this wall here and charge the Ranger unit, and then move the rest of my models within range of this Breacher unit here. I've shut off the Overwatch because my one guy charged both the units. In hindsight, this was potentially a mistake here because it allows him to interrupt with one Breacher and then strike my guys, but at the end of the day, what can you do? So one thing I could have done better is leave the Breach unit untagged, and then he could have heroicked though, so that might have been a mistake anyway. But if he heroicked, I could have struck him first. So, the resulting combat phase looks pretty nasty. I've got all my units within his ranks. My opponent, Sam, does have 10 Ruststalkers in this transport, which he'll have to disembark. And what he does really well is he interrupts with the breaches here, which allows him to then strike my Sword Brethren and kill 4 of them, which is quite big. Then we both figure out that with Halo Creed buff, he can actually fall back and shoot here, which is actually really big for the whole game. I didn't realize he could do that, get the +2 to move, be outside of range distance of my Victor, which was a great play by Sam. But as you can see, I've got a couple of things going for me here. I've got a lot of damage coming in. My Grimaldus brick is going to be fully fresh going into this turn. I've got my Repulse Executioner in a very safe spot. I've got my Emperor's Champion in a very safe spot, still threatening as well. And most importantly, I'm going to be on 2 CP here as well. So I'm going to have the ability to fight on death wherever Sam comes down here, or reactive moves. So it becomes a very tricky situation for the opposing player to play, given that their army is tagged down, and you can reactive move on top of that as well. You can see my Repulsor here, just going to be on the objective, and I want to keep as much primary pressure up as possible. Okay, so Sam has a really good resulting turn. He gets to activate his whole Breacher squad and shoot and charge something. So they have a huge amount of damage in his army, and that put things in a bit of a precarious situation for me. However, we've got a couple of our assets left which are still really going to hit hard. So I'm just going to go after Sam's charge phase here, because that's going to make things a bit clearer of how much damage I've taken. So the Breachers come into combat and shoot and charge, and the resulting board state is not... I take a lot of damage this turn, but I've still got a couple of key pieces, and with the Repulsor Executioners, one thing I found is if you can reduce the total damage available on the board, they oftentimes get to a point where they cannot be ever killed. Once you get to that threshold, their Overwatch becomes deadly because the unit sizes are typically smaller, their OC becomes really valuable, so my goal is to get my Repulsor Executioner onto the middle objective, of course, later in the game. So, I still have another unit of 5 Sword Brethren. We can charge Call here. As you can see, I've lost a ton of Grimaldus' brick. I lost all my 5 Castellan. I lost my Emperor's Champion here, but I shot the Ruststalkers out with my Repulse Executioner. And then I lost my Castellan Marshal, my Marshal and Sword Brethren up here, and the tank is still alive. So my thoughts are this turn, I really need to keep Sam on the back foot and keep him away from the middle objectives, and use my Repulse Executioner to stage 1 turn, so I can get to the middle of the next turn, and then try to clean off as much as I possibly can. This is a really good part about Black Templars, you can see as well, is that when your opponent leaves units next to other units, especially ranged ones, you really want to try and identify them as the charge target. Because then I can charge, kill a unit, tag the other unit, then it'll have to fall back, which I can then react to move around a ruin, which is actually really hard for your opponent to make sense of. Especially if you're going to be near objectives. So, I'm coming in. I'm going to crash in with everything again. Obviously, I was in Tactical Doctrine there, so I'm also flat 6 reactive moving, which is a brilliant turn to be in, really. The Scorpius Disintegrator still lives somehow. My Grimaldus Brick kills the rest of the Breachers, and as you can tell, I'm deep in the ranks of Sam's army. Going first, this position would be like, you know, a decent position, but the fact that I'm going second means that Sam's going to really struggle to get on these objectives to actually deny me hold more at the end of the game. Call is tagged, and I figured once I killed Call, shutting off his Oath of the Moments was going to be pretty big as well. I make a pretty long charge here onto these Taraxi as well, which obviously helps, but that just ties them up. It doesn't really actually kill anything. But you can see if you look at this game state, my opponent's main anti-tank remaining are these Ballistaries over here. My Repulse Executioner is going to be dodging them as best possible, and between reactive move and falling back, I should be able to move block them to a position where my Repulse Executioner can shoot an additional time. I've got 4 CP, so I can put it in Devastator Doctrine, advance and shoot, go onto this point right here, and Storm of Fire to kill like these birds, and put damage on something else as well. So this really becomes a key asset later in the game, once you trade off units. And this was probably basically the rest of the game here. The game was relatively close, because I end up also missing a 4-inch charge with no CP to reroll onto these chickens, and I could have been a little bit more diligent with my CP there. You can see, for example, that these ranges had to fall back, which allowed me to get I placed models within 6 inches when I consolidate into them of the objective, and which allowed me to react to move onto the objective, which forces Sam to have to go back on the objective here as well. So this is a good way you can put pressure on primary as well, especially with the flat 6 reactive move when you fall back and touch things. So Black Templars are really good at punishing armies when they don't like play tight enough, especially shooting armies, because of the reactive moves of the Sword Brethren. And you really have to play this way with the Black Templars. You really have to play a very kind of Aeldari-esque. You have to be... It's definitely not an army which you can bludgeon people with, because it's not fast, but it does hit hard, and it's not really that tanky overall. Like 3-wound Marine's not very hard to kill. A Rogodorn can easily wipe a unit of Sword Brethren joined with a Marshal, which is like a 200-point unit. Okay, so as you can see in my next turn, the goal was to get the Rep-X onto the board. I've got a bunch of CP, I can Storm of Fire, split ways, I went into a lot of different targets here, and I'm trying to keep Sam away from this objective over here, because I haven't really got much over here. So if I can bog him down back in his deployment zone, that's fine with me. And if I hit this charge here, which I don't, then it would be completely game over, but I don't end up hitting that charge. So regardless though, it looks like on the points, because I have bottom of turn and I'm already up, it's going to be a pretty straightforward game for me, and that was Purge to Foe. One thing I would say on this one in particular is that Purge to Foe is not really that good for my army, if I'm being honest with you. My army actually has a lot of different units, primarily because I have like 9 characters, and then I have 6 different units of infantry, and then I have like 2 tanks, and then and another tank. So I have upwards of like almost 20 units, and when they're talking about like little characters and stuff, it's actually quite easy to kill them. So Purge the Foe, not great for me, and considering I want to always double join, always join a character with a character unit, every time I use a unit, it's actually 2 units for my opponent. So that was the game. If you're a Black Templars player, I would like highly recommend watching it. I think it's a great educational piece. That's just how I play it, and I think it's really applicable to Games Workshop boards in particular. And WTC boards, it is actually a little bit easier to play because your staging runes will be a little bit more effective, and you can't 1-inch off the wall. On that note, I would say 1-inching off the wall was an incredibly frustrating mechanic to play around, especially as a Marine melee army. And I hope they do something about that in 11th edition. I don't know if they will, but hopefully they do. It was definitely a big difference playing on this rule set as opposed to WTC last weekend, 2 weekends ago. Okay. So in the Invitational, I did go 3-0. My first game was a bye, but then I ended up playing Stru from Team Scotland on Aeldari as like a pickup game, which was like, I guess, equivalent of an Invitational game as well. And then I can't remember who I played in my 3rd round Invitational, but I can put it in the comments later below. But that game went pretty smoothly as well. And all in all, I was going to be coming back Monday to play regardless if I didn't make the top 8. So yeah, nice little warm up there. This is like maybe the 5th and 6th time I've played on UKTC boards. So I was primarily playing the Invitational as a way to get some practice with my army on the table. Okay, the main event. My camera on my phone is absolutely awful because the lens is completely busted. But as you can see, this is the hall for LGT. This is not even the whole hall, really. There's another mezzanine floor behind me, which is enormous and has 4 game systems on it. But this is what 1,100 players in a hall looks like. As you can see, there was actually a good amount of space between the tables, but the mats were touching to touching. So, pros and cons to that, I would say. But I did appreciate there was a lot of space between the tables. So, all in all, I would say it felt a lot nicer than last year to play on, personally, because I prefer to have more space between the tables and put stuff under the table, rather than, butt kissing someone every 5 seconds next to you. That's behind you. Okay, so the main event, day 1. Okay, first round, I played a guy called Aldo from Italy. He was playing World Eaters, and he had a bit of a spicy list. He had the Corn Lord of Skulls, and he had Angron as well. We're playing Sweeping Engagement, and as it will be thematic for this event, I went first, which I don't know if is good for me, but when your opponent has 2 massive units that they can activate after you have done your movement phase, it's not the best feeling. But Sweeping Engagement, Terraform, the 97-35 victory. The Corn Lord of Skulls shot and killed 5 intercessors, and then died to a grenade and 2 repulsor executioners. So that was, it took 9 damage from a repulsor executioner. Then my Sword Brethren with Marshal unit 1-tapped it. So that was the Corn Lord of Skulls gone. It did fight on death and completely kill my Sword Brethren squad back. So, it got some justice there. Then my double joined unit of Marshal and Castellan one-shot Angron, who then didn't fight on death. So, I was happy that only one of the 2 big things fall on death. But Storm of Fire was really good that matchup. My Repulse Executioners were almost impossible for my opponent to kill, given that I had a huge melee presence on top of that as well. So, Terraform was a good one. And then round 2, I went straight into a pretty tough matchup, to be honest with you. I went into a Byron Saidu, who has been playing for years. I've known him for must be 4 or 5 years now, and he's been playing demons almost exclusively on the UKTC scene for 3 or 4 years, I think. We played a demon mirror matchup in 9th edition when demons got their new codex, for example. That's how far back the first time we played goes. Absolutely lovely opponent, super nice. He was playing 5 big greater demons and 2 units of 10 plague bearers, and there's one other unit I'm forgetting he also has, but that's the bulk of it. He's got Lord of Change, Be'lakor, Guo in the Endless Gift, Rotigus, and Scarbrand. Now, long story short of this game is Guo goes into the middle on turn 1 to get Area Denial Assassination, to get Assassination and something else in the middle. Overwhelming Force Assassinate in the middle, I think. Which lets me heroic my Grimaldus brick onto Guo. The Great Unclean one takes 5 damage in the middle, and I have my Grimaldus brick in the middle, so I end up getting a whole more at least. But that was a good point swing for him, and my Grimaldus brick is in combat with the Great Unclean one. I have double joined this game my 2 Sword Brethren units with 2 Castellans and 2 Marshals, because, let's face it, I'm playing against 5 great, demons. So I was like, cool, I'm going to double join my units, crit 5s, full rerolls to hit, AP2 damage to, should be able to, basically any of those units touches a greater demon, they die. And then I also joined my Empress Champion with my Assault Intercessors, of course, to get 4 rerolls to hit, +2 to charge, character units, and dev wounds. So, 4 rerolls to wound, sorry. So I'm this is a very good matchup for me. But the game gets really close when I make a critical error. I allow him to deep strike a Lord of Change in my deployment zone, and Scarbrand on a 9-inch deep strike, and Scarbrand on a 6-inch deep strike, which then allows him to 1-tap a Sword Brethren squad, the character's still alive, but they're unjoined, and then Scarbrand 6-inch charge into my other ranks when I don't have Fight on Death available. So that was a huge mistake by me. And a little bit complacent, I must say. But there was one guy that really got me out of a pickle. Empress Champion comes back, almost completely one-tap Scarbrand by himself. I think he did 12 dev wounds to him, and then the rest of the squad did the other 2 damage after I had already grenaded him. So almost one-tap Scarbrand. And then the Lord of Change tries to shoot and charge the Empress Champion down. Empress Champion doesn't die, and then Empress Champion I think one taps the Lord of Changeback because I'm in Assault Doctrine, so I have 8 attacks both times. So yeah, Emperor's Champion was pretty damn good that game. My Grimaldus Brick was like insanely good that game. I was able to aggressively Storm a Fire and shoot Be'lakor down to like 4 wounds on turn 1 with my Repex, getting both lasers through, which was super lucky, and like the Icarus bot and the anti-fly stuff, which is like surprisingly just really good against demons. I then shoot it again, Be'lakor, after he heals for 2 wounds, and it does 0 damage. So that's a pretty typical experience when you're shooting a Repulse Executioner into something big. It's like, you either do infinite damage, or you do basically no damage. So for those that think Repulse Executioners are like too strong, genuinely, they are pretty balanced, despite getting 4 rerolls to hit. Like, I'm not even trolling. They are just like pretty balanced in Black Templars. If Black Templars didn't have the current Repulse Executioner, they would be like significantly worse, because you would just be a slow melee army that doesn't have advance and charge in your detachment if you're playing the normal codexes, and or you have very anemic shooting. So that's not a recipe for a good army. Anyway, 94-70, there was a couple of clutch moments there. If like one of my units died, for example, it would have been very close, but a lovely game. You know, I went first this game as well, which was fantastic for demons on Purge the Foe. And because it was Purge the Foe like that, I decided I wanted to play aggressive. Otherwise, you know, getting kills was going to be pretty difficult there as well. The lesson learned in this one was that I should have just kept both of my big Sword Brethren units in my Repulse Executioners, knowing that to kill a Repulse Executioner, he had to commit at least one big demon. And after that, I've just got my double-joined unit next to his big demon, which is exactly where I'm trying to get it the whole time. So don't be greedy and disembark them to try and get more efficacy later on. Just leave them in the big transport. The time will come where you can use them, and when it does, the game will probably end. Okay, last one for day 1. World Eaters. World Eaters is one of my best matchups. I've played it a lot as well. I played it at ETC, my teammate Chris Radford and I played the matchup a lot. And I've just gotten, it's like the matchup where I've just gotten more and more comfortable at playing. Which I think if you're a fellow player, like you probably recognize that. You know, you just kind of play it more and more, you get more comfortable with what the damage numbers should look like, how the tempo of the game should go. This was Hidden Supplies. Ash was playing a Forge Fiend and a Demon Prince, which, not amazing. Well, I think 2 Fortunes maybe. Not amazing into my army, because believe it or not, Forge Fiends don't actually do anything, because the Repexes just outrange them, and your reactive move allows you to play around the Forge Fiend, and you can have Lone Ops that can push the Forge Fiends back as well, and Vector means that their Overwatch is not really that good. So not really where you want to be at. My whole game plan in this kind of setup is to always put a Repulsor Executioner in reserve, so that I can come on one turn and devastate a Doctrine, Storm a Fire, and shoot the 20-man Berserker unit. That will typically kill 10 to 11 Berserkers when I'm in reroll range. So that's always a big part of my game plan. Other than that, I always want to have my standard melee castle with, you know, no fights first, but the ability to Heroic, Fight on Death, and if I just Fight on Death trade the whole game, I should be up as long as my Repulsor Executioners can shoot for the entire game. And that's kind of how it goes. Ash does have Fight on Death Sustained, which he chose to use most of the time. He had a Demon Prince, a Hellbrute, and a Forge Fiend for his choice. But at the end of the day, I was actually just able to combat on the middle of the board, hold my expansion safely, and hit his expansion. So in the melee matchup, I would say the Repulsor Executioners are definitely good if you go first, that's for sure. Alright, day 2. Now, day 2, I've got Aeldari. I think my opponent was called Tim Page. Lovely guy. My strategy against Aeldari was actually quite simple. I would unattach all my characters and then create an army of 2 Marshals, 3 Castellans. That's 5 melee units. Then my other 1, 2, 3 melee units is 8 melee units. My Emperor's Champion is 9 melee units. And then I would have a Combi Lieutenant and Intercessors, which is like close to 11 units that can somewhat threaten 5 Aspect Warriors. And then I've got my Repulsor Executioner and my Impulsor on top of that as well, and my Callidus Assassin. So I've gone with the method of going as wide as possible And there's a really particular game plan I have against Aeldari when I play. And I recommend if you're playing Black Templars, especially my list, go through this. This is the same when I was talking about the Breacher game with the Invitational. Pushing the Repulsor Executioner out, knowing your opponent can use their only way to kill it, but drawing them closer to your Grimaldus brick is the best way to play the game. So, I put my Repulsor Executioner up on the top side of the board. I go, okay, you can bring your Wave Serpent across, disembark Fuegan and kill it. That's absolutely fine. But you're going to be within striking range of my Grimaldus brick and maybe 1 or 2 other units. So what that means is I can wrap your Wave Serpent and then you can't use your Fuegan brick at all. So that's a huge part of my game plan here. Not only that, but it means that I can potentially hit his Wave Serpent, force him to disembark on an angle, and then pile and consolidate my unit into the Fuegan brick to then kill it. What ends up happening is he has 2 or 3 units up in this top central location opposite my Repulsor Executioner that's now dead. I end up killing the other 2 units out, other than the Wave Serpent, which is a unit of Rangers and an Asuman squad. And then I hit my Grimaldus brick has to attack the Wave Serpent. I reroll all my successful hits so that I cannot kill the Wave Serpent. Otherwise, he can emergency disembark his Fire Dragons out, and that's not what I want him to do. I want to make sure his Wave Serpent either dies and then another unit can hit it, or his Wave Serpent's going to be alive and has to fall back. So he goes with the decision of, I don't end up killing it, which is great. He goes with the decision of leaving his Wave Serpent in combat, because if he desperate escapes, he could die, or if he moves it, I can then react to move on top of that and get further into his army. So that's a really good example of my Grimaldus brick is actually really hard for Aeldari to kill, and it's going to draw a huge amount of their firepower into killing it. So I want to use that, trade off the rest of the board as fast as possible, and have my 1 Repulsor Executioner and my 1 Grimaldus brick alive. Then I put a Castellan in reserve and a Callidus that can uppy downy, and that means they have to screen their backfield. So that was my game plan into Aeldari, and I think that actually makes the matchup really, really even, I think. And actually it's a bit harder for the Aeldari to play, maybe, because you've got so many moving pieces to think about. Alrighty. Round 5. This is the end of the normal main event if you take a loss, and I'm playing against the mirror matchup. I'm playing against a gentleman called Max from Luxembourg. It is a mirror matchup with one distinct difference. Max is playing Stormlance. Now, there was another gentleman called Guillaume from Team Belgium, WTC player, who was also playing Black Templars, but also playing Stormlance. Now, in a combat mirror matchup, Stormlance is not where you want to be against Gladius. Why is that? Of course, because you don't have fight on death. Both players have reactive moves, but reactive move is not really what you're using in a combat mirror matchup, unless you're getting back into a transport. And he also doesn't have the Vectora. So I'm going into this game with a Vectora and a fight on death, and a Repulsor Executioner which can storm a fire. Now, the last one's really big, because on these search and destroy boards, my opponent has 2 Repulsor Executioners, I have 2, but I put one of my Repulsor Executioners in reserve. Because I always want to have the turn where I can devastate a Doctrine, 1 Repulsor Executioner from reserve, storm a fire for AP5, and then shoot his Repulsor Executioner to potentially one-shot it. Then, once it's 1 Repulsor Executioner versus 2, there's no way that your opponent's going to outtrade you, because then you AOC, and then you try and live versus their Repulsor Executioner, and then you get 2 big shooting platforms in a combat mirror matchup, which can deal a huge amount of attrition throughout the game, and there's just no way of coming back after that. So that's kind of how the game goes. Max actually charges his Grimaldus brick into the middle on turn 1, knowing that I can... No, he charges a small unit onto my Combi-Lt turn 1, knowing that I can heroic my Grimaldus brick, right? And then he charges his Grimaldus brick into my Grimaldus brick. So, in the middle of the board turn 1, there was an Empress Champion joined with 5 as intercessors, a Combi Lieutenant, which was mine, my Grimaldus brick, and then Max's Grimaldus brick, all in the middle of the board on turn 1. The difference being that I'd gone first, so I discarded a card and I'd gone to 3 CP, which means that I can heroic and fight on death. So, however this trade goes out in the middle, I'm absolutely fine, because I'm going to have fought on death with my Grimaldus brick with +1 AP, which is going to be like a really good trade for me regardless. So, a good macro strategy from me in that game, but a really big list advantage because I'm playing Gladius and I have the Vectora as well. Okay, last one. Well, this is the start of the kind of like cut to top 32, 16 sort of. So, going into round 6, there's about 32 undefeated players. 31, I think. And I get Custodes. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. I don't know if there's other people in chat, but like, Custodes always really scare me when I play against them. Because they always seem to like do a lot better, and I just kind of disrespect them a little bit too much, and then I end up taking huge amounts of damage. So going into this game, I had lost to Custodes with Space Wolves, which was a pretty tough matchup. Stormlands. So I was like, man, I really need to give this army a lot more respect than previously I'd given it. My main concern was that the Kyra Draxus unit shooting twice would actually be really, really good against my melee infantry units. So my main goal was to get the Empress Champion into Kyra Draxus, kill her, and then, play the game. And boy, did he. The Empress Champion, by the way, is like probably the best 100 points you can ever get against Custodes, because they're all joined character units, and he gets dev wounds against them as well. So I think Rory was playing, really lovely guy, only plays Custodes. Rory was playing 2 units of guard, 3 units of guard, 2 Callidus Grav Tanks, 1 Head Trajan, and then a unit of Wardens with a Blade Champ. Some Battle Sisters as well. And so the Emperor's Champion, he was playing the Lion Detachment, can like almost kill a unit of Custodian Guard all by himself by just rolling the dev wounds in the anti-character. But he can definitely just go and kill Kyra Draxus as well. So he's really fast and really hard to play around. He's got the Bike Captain with the Fire and Fade of 2 bikes, I think, as well. So the way this game goes is I go first again. I've got the Vectora, but he's also got the Bike Captain with the free CP. I push 2 units out to Terraform on turn 1, knowing that it's actually quite hard for him to Terraform once we trade units off. And I push all my melee units basically into the middle, and I've got Grimaldus Brick on the left-hand side. I've got a Emperor's Champion staged with a reactive move on the right-hand side. So turn 2, I can go all gas. I've also got a Repulsor Executioner reserve. What ends up happening in the next turn is I bring my Repulsor Executioner from reserve. I shoot his Callidus Grav Tank with 1 Repulsor Executioner, shoot it with another Repulsor Executioner, it still doesn't die, but my Grimaldus Brick makes a long charge with +1 to advance and charge, and then tags his front sister unit in front of his guards, and then is able to pile into his Custodian Guard unit and his Callidus Grav Tank to finish it off. Meanwhile, in the center, I've got my entire army charged into his bike unit. What that allows me to do is use my double joint Castellan unit, which kills the entire bike unit, and then pile in with my next Sword Brethren unit to hit his guard unit, which kills like 4 of them, and then, because the bike unit's dead, activate my Emperor's Champion into his Kyra Draxus unit, and that's a really good example of, if you don't castle correctly, I was talking to Rory about this afterwards, if you don't castle correctly, then you allow your opponent to like charge a unit, activate, because their unit's dead, then pile into something else. And Emperor's Champion killed like 4. I think I killed like 1100 points on turn 2. So that was kind of a bit of a snowbally game after that. But a lovely game from Rory. He used his Chaff unit to kind of anti-terraform and score a secondary when we were chatting afterwards. Maybe he should have used it to just protect his units from being charged initially. That would have given him another screen to protect him from me consolidating into further units and hitting good stuff instead. Alright, so that was round 6. Okay, round 7, the Shadow round, and it's pretty late at this point. This game is starting at roughly like 20 past 8, so yeah, this is a real tough one. We've got, at this point, this is my 7th game I've played. And I'm playing Marco Santopadre from Italy, and I think he's on Team Italy for the WTC, and Marco was a very excellent player. Knew his army very, very well, and what do you know, we're playing Purge the Foe, Crucible of Battle again, and of course I go first again, which is not really where I want to be. On WTC, Emperor's Children is not a good matchup for me. They've got Demon Princes, which have -1 damage, and Noise Marines and Rhinos, which frankly are really, really good at killing Marines. Even if I tag them, they can fall back and activate, so a huge part of my game plan is really just disrupted here. But on UKTC, the shooting lanes are a bit more favorable for the long-range shooting army. So that's where it gets a little bit better for me, because I have the capability of keeping him honest now, because I've got long-range Repulsor Executioner shooting. So, I'll talk you through a couple of turns in this game, but what actually ends up happening is I go first. I use a repulse execution up the top side of the board to shoot a unit on objective and clear it and make sure I get kill one. But he is then able to disembark a Lord Squad and shoot Noise Marines from open top rhinos into my smoked repulse executioner, and he deals like 9 damage to it before the Lord gets in, and I'm like, oh man, I was really hoping he'd deal like 3 to 6, and then I would maybe have a repulsor on 10 or 13 wounds and access to AOC or a CP reroll against this Lord unit so it wouldn't die. But it ends up dying. So I lose that on turn 1, and I'm kind of like, man, this is like not a good position. On turn 1 I've lost a Repex, which I kind of was I told myself before the game, keep the Repexes alive and try and use them throughout the game over 5 turns to win the game. But it's dead on turn 1. I was like, oh man, this is not good. So I immediately went, David, you really need to focus up and play a lot more tighter. And after that, I stuck on the points so hard. I was like super active. And you can see on Purge the Foe, I ended up getting a 12 for a hold more. No, for a kill more, sorry. And then I got another 12 for a kill more. And my opponent only got 112 here as well. So I ended up beating him by 4 points in primary on Purge the Foe going first with a unit with an army that has many more units than my opponent, which was nice. He actually gets almost the same amount of secondaries as me as well, despite me having a completely dud turn here in the end, and having 2 action secondaries in the end here as well. The whole last turn, it's 80 points to 65, and Marco's got second turn. We're playing a really cagey game for the whole turn. On my turn 5, I rush everything to push as much into the center as possible, and wipe out as much to make it as hard as possible for him to get hold more, and hope that he has to draw some action secondaries so he can't activate too much of his army. At the same time, I also bank my CP, knowing that he's really got melee units to actually kill me with at this point. So if I can fight on death, then I can potentially score another kill point later into the game. So my whole game plan is, on my turn 5 going first, push as much into the center as possible, then try and prevent him from getting hold more, and in addition, rack up as many kills on my turn 5, such that I can also fight on death and get more kill. So I think I had 4 kills in the last battle round, so I had 3 on my turn, then 4 when I fought on death on his turn. So it was really hard for him to actually get hold more, kill more in the last game plan, and that was the only way I was ever going to win that game. So, I mean, a lovely game. It was really late. Marco and I were both very tired from playing. There was definitely a way that Marco could have won by using like a different combination of his units, trying to split and get lucky in different directions. Yeah, that's the way it goes. It was looking like a 1-pointer, but I ended up killing 2 units on my fight on death, I think, so that I got kill more. But otherwise it would have been a 1-point win, 80-79, and Marco redrew a card here as well. No, he redrew an advance for his Rhino to get on the objective. So, a really close game. I mean, it's nice to make a top 8 on like a 1-point victory, or in this case a 5-point victory in a really close game. I know Marco traveled from Italy to come and play, and he was pretty gutted to not make the top 8, but we had a really excellent hard-fought game, and big props to Marco. He was an excellent player and a really excellent pilot is there as well, and I know that we will be seeing him next year at WTC as well. So props to him for coming over. Okay, top 8. Right, so there's 8 armies in the top 8, and I get home at like 12 o'clock, midnight, and I check my pairing, and I get the worst pairing out of any of the top 8 armies. There's one army I really didn't want to face, and that was Drukhari. Because Drukhari is... I don't know if there's many hard counters, but pretty much close to a hard counter to my army, if I'm being honest with you. Every single thing in Drukhari's list is extremely good against my army. Let's go through it. And I'm playing Alexander Sacco for all intents and purposes. A lovely guy, of course. Alex and I played in 2023 when he beat me at LGT as well. So I'll get revenge at some point. He's obviously an incredible player. But, you know, to be perfectly honest, I didn't really think that the player skill difference was going to make a difference at all. I just thought, I didn't really perceive there to be a player skill difference, really. But the list advantage is enormous. Like, when I played Gladius against Stormlance, the list advantage was pretty big. This is like, I have like a 80 20 chance to lose, I think. That's kind of how I thought of it in my head. Let's go through why. He has 15 Scourges. Well, 15 Scourges are really good on UKTC when you can't overwatch them because they can make a token, and then they can just fire and fade all over the board and either out-OC you or out-attrition you with your elite melee army and your 2 giant Repulsor Executioners. So, extremely hard for me to use my Repulsor Executioners. Then, it gets worse. Archon Brick with the Court of the Archon, which is an enormous fight-first unit with Vect Aura, with basically only anti-infantry, 2 and 3 plus or something, that rerolls to hit and rerolls 1s to wound when you empower them, and then has like a billion attacks and can like basically one-shot a Grimaldus Brick. And has fights first. So that's about as hard counter to my entire melee arm as you can get. Then he's got 2 Venoms and a Starweaver. Now Venoms and Starweaver have the ability, once you kill something, you can jump back in the transport. So against mainly a monophase army like mine, he has small transports which he can jump back into at the end of the fight phase. And they carry, you guessed it, anti-infantry units. So, Lilith, a Solitaire, and Drazar. Now, Drazar is kind of like good against everything, but all 3 of those units will easily one-shot a Sword Brethren unit and the character. It's not even close. Excellent. Then the rest of it is actually not that scary. You know, we've got like Mandrakes, whatever, some Racks, nothing too special. Urian's not too hard for me. Hellions, not like amazing against me, and Chronos. But if you think about it, I thought going into the matchup, I'm going to have to come up with some like really creative ways to even try and get a path to victory here. And when you're playing a singles event, you know, the only thing that matters is a path to victory, right? So, my path to victory in my game plan here was, I'm going to put my Emperor's Champion in my Impulsor to then threaten his expansion objective so that I could buy space for my Repulsor Executioner to either rapid ingress or arrive from reserve to shoot and then either move with Devastated Auction and shoot. So we're playing Search and Destroy Hidden Supplies, so I've got my Repulsor Executioner up the top left. I'm going to advance it behind my terrain piece, right? And then hopefully have a turn where I can Devastate a Doctrine the second turn and shoot into his deployment zone to shoot a Venom. But the problem here is that Scourges really keep me honest. I'm going to try and trade off as much as the board as possible to keep my Repulsor Executioners alive. So hopefully I can get a turn where I can activate them multiple times and then kind of table them as fast as possible with them. But the Scourges can really keep them at bay. Particularly because the Dark Lance ones can basically shoot you from no matter where you are outside of 24 inches. Or the Haywire ones can turn off Overwatch. So it's really difficult army to interact with in terms of the Scourges. Then, it's very difficult for me to play aggressively because he can always heroic with either the Solitaire, which has fights first, but the Solitaire can just go snipe a whole unit out, or he can heroic with the Court, which he can 1-inch off the wall, but also has 25mm bases. So it's really difficult for me to use my Grimaldus Brick to get an advantageous charge onto him. Not to mention the fact that he's obviously going to castle correctly with his large ruin, so it's actually just really difficult for me to get any opportunity to charge him in general, and he's about twice as fast as my army as well. So I was really hoping to go second in this game so that I could play a KG defensive game, which is kind of my strong suit, and hopefully I could really catch him off guard by trying to put my Repulsor Execution in reserve, make him bleed units out, use my shooting with my firing deck with my Impulsor to kill his bleeds cheaply, and then bring my Repulsor Executioners in later into the game and having to make him pressure and bleed units consistently from turn 2 onwards. But going first like completely changes that. As soon as I go first, Alex has like almost zero pressure to simply just challenge my castle and play aggressively. He doesn't need to play aggressively at all, and given that he has a significantly better defensive castle than me, the chances of me winning are very, 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 very slim. I make 1 or 2 genuine mistakes. I forgot to charge a unit here, but I ended up having to go for plays where, say for example, some things would live, and I would need to get, let's say, the 10% outcome on this, or the 10% outcome on that, and that was usually around like, hopefully some Repulsor Executioners take, once I smoke them, you know, hopefully he deals like 3 damage with a Dark Lance or 3 damage with a Haywire, so I can then activate them again, or, you know, Drazar's unit doesn't kill my Repulse Executioner like in 2 turns, for example, and I can out-OC him on an objective and tie him down. Lots of little things like that. None of them just ended up going my way as well. I ended up getting one nice thing where I got quite a big charge, which managed to let me pile in and consolidate and tag some Scourges when I otherwise couldn't have. Yeah, all in all, it was a incredibly tough matchup, really. We saw also Ennis Wilson play Alex next time on Purge the Foe. Ennis went... I can't remember if he went first or second, sorry, but he also lost to Alex as well. And it's just, I think Marines are just such a tough matchup for... Drukhari is such a tough matchup for Marines. I mean, there's nothing really that enables you to play aggressively, because the Scourges are such amazing anti-tank, and then you have such amazing anti-infantry. So unless you just try and all in and stat check them in one turn, you know, which is just not even going to go well either. Like, if I just played aggressively on turn 1, he would have activated his whole army, and I would have just been 20-0'd, I think. So, there we go. It's, you know, it's a bit bittersweet pitting the worst matchup. I mean, I had some matchups there that were, to be honest with you, pretty kind of in the auto-win territory. We had, there's a 6th grader demon list, which my list is just absolutely insane against. There's Andy Cross-Clone with Necrons, which I matched up really well into, I thought. I think Liam on CSM, my list has like a slight advantage in. Emperor's Children I was happy to play into. Raven Guard, not really that happy to play into. But then Ennis Wilson's list, I think I was like kind of okay going into as well. But yeah, that's just how it goes in a big tournament, you know. Sometimes you're going to hit the rough end of the range there, but you do need a good run kind of pairing wise, I think, as well, to get through to the end. But hey, you know, I was happy to get 8th in the end there, I think. And yeah, some reflections. Army selection. Yeah, so I think one thing about me that's changed a lot is that, you know, I used to have this drive to like play the best army every tournament, and, you know, really optimize for the terrain format and everything like that. And before the tournament, I was debating on whether I should play Raven Guard, which I was very sure would be just a better army to play. But, you know, in all honesty, I really didn't want to paint a new army and go through the stress of that, especially with all the stuff going on in my life. And I really was enjoying the Black Templars. So I thought, you know, I'm going to take an army that I'm really enjoying playing. I'm really going to... I didn't play a game the week before the tournament. I was just painting the whole time. And, you know, I'm going to go there and just do my best with Black Templars and see how that goes. I did, you know, I certainly appreciated that Combat Marines is not really the way to prevail on UKTC boards, I think. You know, it definitely favors, like, heavily shooting-based armies. You know, my teammate Lewis Smith was playing Tau, which I think was an excellent choice for there, for example, or just Raven Guard, for example, or even Ennis's list with the Storm Raven. I think it's just, like, a great aggressive shooting army. And I think if you look at the top 8, I was the only melee pressure army that got through to the top 8, which I think kind of says a lot. I mean, I do have 2 Repulse Executioners, but my list is basically, you know, 1,600 points of pure melee gas there. So I was happy to think that I was probably one of the only, like, you know, combat armies to get through. Primarily combat armies to get through. I was really happy with the build I ended up going with, and I wouldn't have changed anything, really. I don't think there's many viable shooting options to put into Black Templars, because the lack of Oath of Moment means that you can't really play anything outside of a Repulsor Executioner, and you still need the transports. And the boards realistically don't really let you deploy an Impulsor Repulsor Executioner and a Ballistus Dreadnought, for example, on a board. And yeah, that's kind of it. So I think the list is pretty much capped out to be as good as it's going to get there. And I really recommend people... oh, I've been talking a lot. My apologies. I've been, as you can imagine, talking a lot over the past 4 days. And I've been just talking a lot now. Yeah. So like I was saying, I don't really think there are a lot of other great shooting options for Black Templars. And I don't really think there are any other great detachments to play. I don't think there's any better detachment to play than Gladius here as well. Okay, yeah, I mean, the next point is it's a bit bittersweet. No one enjoys losing, but at least it was a great game. You know, I had a fantastic game playing with Alex, of course, and I think I've still got that drive that I really dislike losing, in a sense that, like, if, I still wanted to do really well in the tournament, right? By the way I look at it is like there's 1,092 players, and there's 1,091 disappointed players on Monday. So, I was still really happy to make the top 8, but it would have been nice that after I made the top 8 to maybe hit like a smoother pairing run and get into some of those deeper games. But, it's just the way it is. And one thing I would say is I think the way that I did play against Drakari, I made a few like micro mistakes in the game that I could have done better with. To be honest with you, I think it was the second time I played against Drakari. I didn't even look at Alex's list until the morning of as well, because I had to go sleep. But I was pretty happy with my ability to evaluate the game and try and look for a path to victory in a game which looks almost unwinnable, really, or very straightforward for your opponent. I had to come up with some pretty unique plans there. And then the top 8, looking at the top 8 overall meta, felt very balanced. There were 3 marine armies, and then the rest of it was all different armies. So I would say that it was surprising to me that there were no super heavy shooting armies that could produce like a null game where your opponent kind of goes first, is able to activate heavily. I was kind of surprised that there weren't more armies like that got in, but those armies have been becoming less stronger in the overall meta, regardless of your terrain format. There's not like a Iron Storm list or Tau, but it did make me think that maybe actually playing one of those lists would have been like quite a good option potentially. Like there was probably a list for LGT that was a shooting marine style list that was quite good, like some kind of Iron Storm build or like a Firestorm build, something there that could have actually just been a very good advance and shoot. If I went first, I'm able to deal a lot of damage on turn 1. So, okay, that was my recap, that was my summary. You can check out the game, the stream game on Wargames Live. It was very fun, and I would highly recommend, if you got into this part of the video, check out the Chaos Space Marines Masterclass from Liam VSL. I mean, the guy's won LGT 3 times, for goodness sake. We do an entire section on Veterans of the Long War with actual gameplay turn 1 and 2. Then the Combat Masterclass with Liam is exactly how he plays and how he thinks and how I played and how I thought with Black Templars. And if you want to get into Black Templars, I think they're a fantastic army. So get into it. Black Templars Masterclass, I think it's like £15. You can get the Combat Masterclass and Black Templars Masterclass for I think it's like £30 total. There is no better value for money after that. Okay, that's been my shill. It was incredible meeting all the Fireside 40k supporters. I had people coming up to me all weekend, more than I've ever experienced before, coming up to Vic and I and saying, I really love this video, it really helped me improve, or I really love this. I've been a subscriber, I'm a supporter, I'm on the Discord. So that's really encouraging that they were doing the right thing there as well. Okay, my voice is absolutely dying. That's been me. Have a good one, everyone, and enjoy playing Warhammer 40k, the greatest game there is.
Thank you for listening to the 40k Fireside. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe, drop us a comment, check out the YouTube members area, and we look forward to seeing you again next time by the Fireside.